Welcome to our introduction to fire starting video. In this video, we want to demystify starting fire. It's not magic, it's actually application of scientific principles that allows you to reliably and consistently start fires, regardless of conditions and what you have to work with. There are a number of reasons why fire should be considered a strategic asset in a survival situation. It's not really a nice to have thing, it's a pretty much need to have thing. Fire helps us prevent hypothermia. It is great for purifying water and cooking food. Fire is great for tool preparation and improvement. You can harden wood and shape wood with fire. Fire gives us a psychological boost. It kind of is a force multiplier. It also keeps things that we don't want to have to deal with away from us in a lot of situations. And lastly, fire is also a great signaling tool. Fire is not a nice to have thing, it's a strategic asset in a survival situation. So now let's jump right in. There are three things that every fire needs in order to burn. They need heat, something to start the combustion. They need fuel, something to actually burn. And they need oxygen to continue the combustion process. So luckily, we have oxygen all around us. If we didn't, fire is the least of our concerns because we suffocate. But that's also another piece to consider because fire competes with us for oxygen. So when building a fire, make sure you have good ventilation. So let's start with the heat source. There are a lot of different types of heat sources out there. We've been building fires as humans for thousands of years. We started off probably with just friction tools, and now we moved into sparks and chemical reactions to get that fire started in a more reliable manner. Okay, so today I'll do a demonstration with the flint and steel ferro rod and a good old lighter or match. So all of these have their advantages and disadvantages, but they're all useful, and if paired with the right fuels, they can be very successful. All right, so next we're going to cover the fuel sources. All right, so fuel is broken into three different categories. We have tinder. No, tinder is not just an app. It's our flashy fuel that can be ignited with a small flame or a spark in a lot of cases, and it starts the combustion process. There are tinder sources that we can carry with us pre-prepared, which is always the best case scenario. So we've got some old school char cotton. It's just cotton balls that have been burned down in a controlled manner till it's just charcoal basically. Then we've got some cotton balls that are covered in petroleum jelly, which actually burns really well, and they're great for multiple purposes. We have some heat tabs that you can light pretty easily, and they help start fire. Another type of wet fire, these ones, supposedly you can get them soaking wet and still light them and they'll burn and help you get a fire started. Something that a lot of us carry with us is hand sanitizer. And this hand sanitizer right here is 72% alcohol. And we know alcohol burns pretty readily. So that can be helpful in getting a fire started. Um, and then we move into some of the other types of tinder that we may be able to procure. Well, this is dryer lint, and we don't find many of those in the outdoors, but it's something that you can carry. It's very light and it burns pretty readily. Then we've got just dried grass that we can harvest in a lot of different environments. Dry grass can burn very, very easily and is a good flashy fuel and dries out very quickly in sunlight or around fire, or can even be dried out with body heat in certain cases. Then inner bark from hardwood trees a lot of the time can be a great source of tinder. It burns very well, and it can be easily procured. Next, we move up into kindling. Once we've got the tinder started, we need to start fueling the fire and building the size of the flame. And we've got to do that gradually with kindling. Kindling can be easily procured from dead standing trees. Branches are great. Small branches, size of a pencil, smaller, or maybe the size of your pinky, can be considered tinder, or excuse me, kindling. And you can also take and cut down larger chunks of wood into kindling as well. You can do that with a knife or a hatchet or an axe. And next we have our main fuel. You're going to determine how big you want your main fuel by a couple of different things. How well can you process it down, and what's available to you? How big do you want your fire, and how long do you want it to burn for? All of those things will play into what kind of fuels you're going to use. All right, so again, we need heat, we need fuel, and we need oxygen. The oxygen often is just provided by us in the initiation process as we understand that structure matters. And there are different structures that work well in different situations. The first one I'm going to do is a TP fire. TP fires are very simple to build. They start pretty quickly and they can distribute heat rather rapidly. So they're a good fire to start with. They are not really easy to start in the wind sometimes. So if you've got really gusty winds, that might not be your play. So knowing the structure is important. Um, It's important also, before you try to start a fire, to have all of your preparation done. Notice I have my tinder laid out, I have my initiating source, and then I've got my kindling here. So I don't want to have to build this thing in flight. So don't light your tinder and then have to run and go gather all your kindling. I want to have everything ready to go. So now I'm going to go ahead and start building the structure of my teepee. All right, so I'm just going to build around um, this tinder here, just like a teepee shape, right? So coming up to a point, and I just kind of fill this whole thing in with my kindling. I'm going to go ahead and use this match. Now, one of the things about these matches is you have to have a striker plate with them. They're not strike anywhere, but they're supposed to be windproof, waterproof, all the good stuff. And it does sure seem like it burns pretty well. So you can see the fire's already starting here with my tinder. There we've got a little bit of a start. Get some more fuel in there. Start building up the intensity. It's already got some good heat coming off it. And at this point, I can even start adding a little bit more size to my fuel, and it's going to keep burning. So I feel pretty confident that that one's going to keep going. So that's the teepee. And again, like you saw, it just naturally transmits the heat up into the fuel and gets going pretty quick. All right, the next structure that we're going to talk about is the lean-to. Now, the lean-to is a very good structure to know because it works really well when you're dealing with wind conditions. So if I have a strong wind blowing from my left to my right, and I'm having a hard time keeping a fire burning, I'm going to put some kind of barrier, and it could be bigger than this little log, but we're going to start off with that. We're going to put our tinder down. We're going to have all of our kindling prepared. And this one, I'm going to use a ferro rod, which is a sparking initiating system, to try to get a fire started using grass and this cotton ball. All right. So the cotton ball, again, has petroleum jelly on it. And we'll see how fast we can do that and get a fire started. That wasn't too bad. Now that I've got the tinder burning, we're going to just kind of come in here and lay this stuff over. So I've got a pretty strong flame, so I can give it pretty good oxygen now. I'm going to gauge how hard I blow on this fire by how strong the flame is. If it's a really small, weak flame, I'm just going to feed it a little bit. But if it's a strong flame like this, I can get in there and get aggressive and really start it burning. And now this one, obviously, it's already ready to start putting some more sizable fuel on it. That one started up pretty quick. All right, for this last one, we're going to try to get a little bit fancy. I'm going to use a flint and steel on this one, and traditional flint and steel. Also, if you have ground that's wet and not really conducive for starting a fire, you can do something like build a platform. All right, so this is just fresh cut wood, split wood that is dry on the inside, so I can set that down and just make a little platform. And on top of this, I'm going to build a log cabin. All right, log cabins are super simple. They're fast and easy to build. They have good airflow, so you can get them started pretty quickly most of the time, and they're pretty structurally sound. So basically, we're just Lincoln log building. For those of you who are old enough to know what Lincoln logs were, we're just going to go ahead and build a log cabin up. So alternating how we lay these down, and my kindling may be a little bit small. We'll see, because I need to leave room for me to put the put my tinder on the inside. And because I'm using a flint and steel, I'm going to initiate it first and then deposit it inside my little log cabin here. So we're just going to build up a couple layers like so, and we're going to leave ourselves enough to where we can still put a roof on once we get it started. All right, so I'll take a little bit of the, and I'm going to build a little nest here. Okay, so in order to use a flint and steel, the most reliable technique is you use char cloth, which again is just some fabric, cotton fabric, or cotton ball in this case, that has been burned down to just charcoal. All right, so I'm going to attempt to transfer a spark onto this and get an ember started. Got it. All right. Now that we've got that, I'm going to come over here closer. Now I'm trying to transfer this ember. There we go. And now we have a little bit of fire. There we go. All right, so now it's actively burning. We're going to put some of this stuff on top. And again, it's kind of a delicate flame at the moment, so I've got to be real careful with it. Okay, we're starting to get some transfer there from the tinder to the kindling. That's a good thing. We want some nice small pieces to feed in here. There we have it. So we use 3 different initiating systems, from pretty easy and modern to pretty antiquated and old, but still effective. We got 3 for 3. Now, granted, the conditions aren't awful today. The humidity is pretty low, and this material was fairly dry, but still, it's just science. Heat, fuel, oxygen. And if I can combine those, I'm going to get fire reliably. And then I will have that psychological boost, that way to purify water and cook food, signal, and stay warm. So that's really the basics of fire. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and drop comments and let us know what other content you'd really like for us to share. And if you have some favorite fire starting techniques, drop them in the comments as well. Thanks for coming by.